We are beginning. It is Tuesday, March 12th. Hello, Erin Dunlevy.
Hi, Cardozie Jones.
It's nice to be here with you always.
Always nice to be with you. Excited.
Very. We'll give folks a few seconds to enter the space. The numbers are ticking up. Very happy to see folks here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
All right. Let's just dive in. Erin, you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, sweet. Hi everybody. So nice to be here with you in this webinar format, in this cyber format, in this digital format. Miss you in person if I've seen you ever in person. And if not, would hope to see you in person one day. My name is Cardozie Jones. I am CEO and founder of True North EDI. What brings me to this work is a true belief that really meaningful facilitation is so important to the work we do around transformation, around justice, around equity. And the last 10, 20 years of my life have been about honing those skills. And hopefully that is present today. Erin.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Erin Dunlevy. I am Vice President at True North EDI, and a friend and facilitation partner to Cardozie Jones. Everything we do together is fun. So I am echoing some of what Cardozie shared about what brings me to the work. Is the joy of what's possible, and definitely an understanding. What brings me to the work is an understanding that relationship is the container in which any great change happens. So I'm leading today with a lot of gratitude for my relationship to Cardozie, to the team at True North, and everyone who joins us today.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so much gratitude, so much joy. And I think that is another underlying piece of who we are, who True North EDI is. We oftentimes we do conferences or panels, and people say like, what's the pain point? What's the challenge? And of course there are challenges. Of course there's pain. There is a whole spectrum of emotion that is involved in the work that we do. But for us, uh, the joy of what's possible on the other side of it is and possible through it is our entry point, rather than the pain point. So a little bit about who we are. Some housekeeping. We are going to, at the bottom of your screen, there should be an option to show closed captions. So if you need that, please feel free to utilize it. You will receive a recording of this webinar tomorrow, I believe, along with any resources, PDFs we have to share with you, which we will today. And in terms of the overview, like the landscape ahead of the session, the webinar, we will do a little opening. And then we're going to walk you through this kind of DEI map, this DEI journey, DEI blueprint. We're working it out, and which is actually another point I want to share. One thing, kind of in the vein of not non-perfectionism, this is a little bit of a work in progress. Erin and I have been thinking through this along with the rest of our team at True North. How do we share and think deeply about where are we in the journey? What does it mean to start? What does it mean to shift, to reverse, to move, to reimagine? If there is a destination, what is it? And so I think we're kind of dropping a pin, no pun intended, into where we are right now with this map, with this journey, with this kind of iteration of what we're thinking about. Erin, anything to add on that?
No, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
All right. So where do we go from here, mapping the DEI journey? Let's get started. So we often start our workshops with some kind of grounding, reflection, something for us to kind of chew on before we dive into the work. And we have historically shown this house, a picture of this house, and we ask folks to think of, what do they think of when they see the house? What comes to mind? What questions come to mind? So some of what we get when we ask folks, what does it make you think of? Um, what questions come up for you about its history, about its future? Folks ask or wonder around what's the relationship between this house and the land that it's on? Was it designed to integrate? Was it designed to dominate? Who was it built for? What would it look like to reimagine the house? Does the house need to be brought down completely? Is the house being brought down as we speak? So a lot of our work, we'll talk about, and I'll pass over to Erin, is about looking at the house we built and considering what it means to navigate, to inhabit, to cohabitate in these houses, in these structures, in these systems we built together. Erin.
So this house metaphor comes to us from the incredible Isabel Wilkerson. This is an excerpt. It's actually chapter 2 from Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. We'll just share a little quote from chapter 2 of this incredible book. If you haven't read it, it came out in 2020. Isabel Wilkerson offers us that America is an old house. We can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws left unattended in the original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester, whether you choose to look at it or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Whatever you are wishing away will gnaw at you until you gather the courage to face what you would rather not see. Now, we love this as a way to think about working within an organization that has institutional history. There might be an instinct among your team as you're mapping your DEI journey to say, well, we didn't build those structures, right? But as Isabel Wilkerson offers us here, whatever we ignore at our own peril, right? What is it that we inherited within our organizations, even if we didn't build it, that no longer serves us as we work towards diversity, equity, and inclusion? And that's what our map is here to help us do today. And that's making me feel like blueprint is the right analogy. Again, at True North, we would talk about the right analogies for hours. But with that in mind, we want to leave you with this kind of essentially this invitation to make the invisible visible and to really turn around and say, what did we inherit and does it still serve us?
Thanks, Erin. So to share a little bit about the landscape and context from which this map is coming, and which our work in general is kind of living in right now, we want to think about a few, I think, key pieces. I believe yesterday was really like the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic shutdown, of sheltering in place. So we were all there, we were all present, unless there are any 3-year-olds on this webinar right now. We were all present during that time. And so that time was also kind of the container for the murder of George Floyd, and the civil rights and racial justice reckoning uprising that happened during that time as well, and that continues to happen. From that time and from that presidency through now, we are still seeing calls for action across sectors and legislation, policy, and rulings aimed at limiting or eliminating DEI, critical race theory, affirmative action, you name it. It is literally under fire in a really consistent way. So we recognize that while this is not that webinar, while that can be a webinar in and of itself, a webinar that we lead, a webinar that we attend, and we are really thinking deeply about what it means standing here looking forward at the landscape ahead, and how that will inform our work, inform our language, inform us co-conspiring with folks, with partners to really figure out how do we move forward with integrity, but still be able to move forward. So we recognize that that's happening for many of us, that we've certainly been part of this process for the last few years, and there will be more to come. And we have, I think, the privilege of partnering with a lot of wonderful folks who are looking forward to pressing forward in a creative way.
So I love what Cardozie just shared. We wanted to make sure that we had the landscape present because that's really, that landscape is actually where this map has come from. In our partnerships with folks who are, whether they're at the beginning of their DEI journey, many folks have actually started, and they started under those circumstances. So what have we seen in the last few years in our partnerships that have been essential components when we're thinking about the direction we want to move in each of our organizations? And this is an overview that we're going to share with you. As Cardozie said, you're going to get a PDF, and we're going to move through it piece by piece, really sharing what we've learned about this map. But ultimately, we're going to talk about what it means to start the work, not with discovery, but rather with building the container. What's actually the structure that's going to hold this journey? Then we would talk a little bit about what a discovery process might look like for your organization, right? How are we getting the information we need to know what changes we want to make? Moving then into surfacing themes and priorities from the information we got. What buckets are going to actually be the areas that we want to see change right away? What are the more long-term changes we want to see, and who's responsible for those? From there, actually, we want to talk about the development of a vision, right? Actually, this is what our organization is going to look like when it's done, right? We're going to be this, we're going to do this for the world. And from there, we have a plan that is always working into that vision. Implementation is essential, and we're going to talk about what pieces really help implementation and what pieces have gotten in the way in our experience. And finally, assessing along the way. Cardozie and I are educators, so our love of great assessment, formative and summative, is informing how we are working with folks to have actual useful, ongoing benchmarks and assessment processes. Again, these are the container and the assessment are ongoing. We're constantly refining them so that the work feels like it's held in a way that will move it forward.
Thanks, Erin. So I'm going to put in the chat now the actual PDF of the map. The last slide Erin shared was the overview. So in the chat, I will place this map. You might want it, you want it in general, but also for the Q&A at the end of this webinar, we'll have an opportunity to answer questions. We'll give about 15 minutes. So for right now, during the webinar, if you want to write down questions on your own, kind of place them somewhere, you can go back to them. And then feel free to, we'll be answering questions at the end today. But this is what the map looks like. I'm also putting the PDF in the chat for folks. Hopefully everyone has access to that. We'll find out. But as Erin said, we'll walk through each phase to really kind of, as concisely as possible, name what has happened. If you are in this phase, what has happened? That's kind of the language of the map. Where are you? Where are you as it relates to the journey, and what have you done? The next part of the conversation, as Erin also mentioned, next slide, please, will be the impediments to meaningful progress at that phase. So within each phase, the clients that or the organizations that we talk to that reach out to us every day are typically somewhere on this map. And typically there's a reason they haven't moved forward. So we're trying to take some of what we've heard, some of what we experienced at True North EDI in our own journey, and share it back, and again, make visible the steps, the missteps, the possibilities, the pitfalls along the way.
So we want to take a little time to talk about what we actually mean by building the container. The container is essential for us in terms of making sure that any DEI processes don't feel like they're coming out of nowhere. So, you know, we often ask people to think of like what comes to mind when you think of a strong container, right? We don't want any leaks. It should be able to hold what's inside of it. That's like the essential purpose of a container. And so when we're building the container for DEI work, we want to make sure we have these components. We want to share the steps of the process, right? We want to inform all the folks, like we often start with town halls. Here's what it's going to look like, and here's where it's going to live. We want to be honest about what we know and what we don't know. We have found so much that maybe, you know, a lack of transparency, we might call it, doesn't start us off on the right foot, we might say. We want to acknowledge necessary history. Again, this is another place where we can invite Isabel Wilkerson's wisdom into our the beginnings of our step by saying, like, here's what we got, and it isn't the best of what we can do. Then we want to make sure that we're pivoting into sharing what feels possible, and give space for needs to be shared, especially by the people who are going to be most impacted by the work that we do. Again, we're trying to build a strong container to hold the work of DEI on the offset, and that really requires that we're informed, that it's consensual, that it's specific, that it's collaborative, and that these are really actions we've seen people take that have set the process off on the right foot.
Thanks. So moving into kind of the first work phase, and speaking of the container, a lot of times we ask folks to um, think about the questions they're asking before they drive off in a car. They might say, do I have fuel? Do I know where I'm going? Are the kids buckled up? Have I checked my blind spots? So when I think about the container, I'm also thinking about kind of this map and like what's in my bag? Like what's in my survival kit, right? Before I head forward. So in this discover phase, where are organizations? So efforts have been made to capture and organize demographic, positional, and experiential information as it relates to the existence of a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. So, I want to focus on the three words here, demographic, positional, and experiential. If I were to render DEI down into a few base pieces of language, these might be some words that I use or words that come to mind. So demographic, we understand what that means, right? Who is present? What is the composition of people in the space as it relates to different identity markers, race, gender, age, and so on. Um, Positional, where do people sit, and particularly where do historically marginalized people sit in proximity to power, in proximity to decision making? And then experiential, we're looking at what is the experience of those people, day to day, month by month, week by week. What is the experience physically, emotionally, mentally of the people in those space, and how are they thriving? How are they belonging? How are they regarded as valuable and whole? Um, Now, in the unabridged version of this, we tell you, as Erin said, we do town halls, and there you can do focus groups, you can do surveys. There are a lot of ways to make visible the invisible when it comes to um, this discovery process. Now, moving on to some of the possible impediments to the process. One of the metaphors we use is DEI work can feel like opening a closet door and just a mess falls out, right? A closet door you have wanted to keep shut and avoid and ignore for months or weeks or years, and you finally open the door, and now there's clutter everywhere. There's so much now in front of you. So thinking through that, one of the impediments to the discover process, if you've been through that process, is lack of or no expression of the why, which impacts response rate. So we know when we do surveys, we need a high response rate to understand qualitatively and quantitatively what is the picture we're seeing, a realistic understanding of what's happening. But if in that container phase, if we're not authentically sharing, here's why we're doing this, then there's a lot that can get in the way of me responding. Back to the closet door metaphor, you might be overwhelmed by the nature of the responses, right? Now, it doesn't mean they're all negative or mostly negative, but it can be a lot of information. And so if we feel as though we don't know what to do with it, then it can cause kind of a paralysis. Once we have captured information, we might be unsure of where to focus efforts or what to give attention to. A lot will come up, and that's good. You want a juicy process to get juicy feedback and experiences. But that does mean you have a lot now to sift through and to sort to figure out where we focus our attention. We have seen a lot of our partners make the mistake of not sharing back the data. And not sharing back data is one aspect of gatekeeping that we like to make visible. And it reinforces prior oppressive behaviors and structures. And the whole point of DEI is to begin to reimagine it and undo that. Now, for all of these things, we understand the inclination to withhold, but the reality is that inclination serves as an impediment. And then finally, defensiveness is a huge emotional state when you receive feedback that may feel uncomfortable, that may feel like attention, that may feel critical. And so again, we understand. I have it, Erin has it, we've been through it. But we have to understand that we don't want to prioritize our defensiveness over our equity work. Ultimately, when we don't move past this phase, the cultural impact here on the community is eroded trust.
Absolutely. Moving into kind of our next stage of the map, we want to make sure that we're surfacing themes and priorities. So using the information gathered, we've dedicated time for a representative cross-organizational group to surface trends. Now, this can look a lot of different ways. We work a lot with helping organizations create DEI committees or teams. We also, work with different departments, right? And how are they looking at the data and coming up with different things based on their own perspectives. But we've got cross-organizational groups to surface trends, identify the themes that are present, and hone in our realistic set of priority areas to guide a subsequent phase of work. So, we often find that the expertise that's in the room can be really, really helpful in surfacing themes and priorities. Now, what are the impediments to this stage of surfacing the themes and priorities, besides not doing it at all, which also happens, right? We have seen certainly that leadership is the sole arbiter of what trends should be prioritized. It's really important, right, that we've got kind of cross-organizational, that we're moving through the tiers of the organization to ask people what it is that they see and what should be a priority in terms of change efforts. There's a lack of balance in priorities named. For example, increasing diversity prioritized, but the experience of current historically marginalized staff is overlooked. This is a cycle we hear about quite a bit. It actually, really, really impedes our efforts. And that there's clear and authentic communication about how priorities were named. Again, transparency is going to be a theme in all of our impediments. And we want to make sure that everybody understands that the cultural impact of this is disengagement, right? So if all of a sudden I was asked to participate in a survey, I don't know what happened with that information. I don't know where it went. There are a lot of closed rooms where ideas and decisions are being made about the most impacted folks in the room without their voices. It's really going to be hard to feel engaged as a whole community in the process.
Thanks, Erin. So the next phase is we've developed a vision. A diverse and representative stakeholder group has identified a desired future state based on the priority areas. In other words, what will look and feel different on the other side of the work. So I want to be clear that this map, the intention of it is not only to speak to the macro, big strategic plan or DEI strategic plan, but also the micro. This might be the launch of a training program, the launch of a communication strategy. And so when we're talking about developing a vision, we could mean kind of what we know to be an organizational vision, like the kind of the big headline of the organization or a DEI process. But we're also talking about it if you are, as Erin said, on a team of people, you're on a programming team, on a communications team, what's the vision of the work moving forward? And being able to name that allows you to backwards design into that vision, which is what we want. Vision can be malleable, right? It can grow as we grow, it can change as we change. Now, in terms of the vision, if you have named a vision, here are some of the impediments to the process. So visions can feel untethered to action. And as we are giving language to vision, we want to make sure we, again, have laid out the process to know this is not the end. these words are not the end. We saw a lot of this in 2020, where we have big words, flowery words that are beautiful to look at, but ultimately are shallow or are not positioned to be followed up by action. Um, on the other hand, urgency toward implementation and action without a vision, no bueno, right?
Mm.
We want to make sure that we know where we're moving toward, right? We don't know what we don't know. And that's part of the work. That's part of the container. That's the reality of all the things. We're trying the sci-fi version of all of this. We're trying to build a world we have not seen yet collectively. At the same time, we want folks who are we are charged with leading or being in collective with to understand that there's some sense of direction. There's a plane going overhead. Pause for a second. That there's some sense of direction. And so we don't want to bulldoze over the part of the process where we name our hopes, we name our aspirations, because then we have actions that are untethered to our hopes, untethered to what we believe is possible. And that leads us to kind of like checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. And lastly, an impediment here is the vision isn't tied to data. It isn't tied to what we've discussed. We've gone through a discovery phase. We've gone through the process of really sifting through and sorting through priorities and areas of tension and areas of growth and naming some priority areas. And now the vision is just words that have nothing to do with what we discussed. So Erin, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to offer that the cultural impact of the impediments to vision is
Yeah.
confusion. Like, what are we actually doing? And again, we wanted to name the cultural impacts of the impediments to each of these steps because that actually might be your best assessment right now. If you're on this webinar and you're like, we've been doing things, but we're really confused, this might help us, right? Or actually, we've been doing things, but people are really disengaged. They're not showing up for meetings. It'll give you a direction to where you might need to spend some more attention. So after vision, we really do want to create a meaningful plan. And this happens best when we select individuals and or teams that feel galvanized to participate in knowledge, skill building, the development of meaningful and time-bound goals, and the identification of benchmarks and how we're going to hold ourselves accountable. So these are essential pieces to any plan. There are a lot of ways that there are plenty of systems for organizational change. We are no strangers to the OKRs, right? To objectives and key results, to the key performance indicators, whatever it is that your organization uses. We know that any good plan, again, has these goals. The goals are time bound. We've identified the benchmarks. We'll know how we're doing and how we're doing it well and how we're going to hold ourselves accountable if it doesn't happen. So the impediments, of course, to this plan are that we have seen this so much, and I feel like you can't kind of be in tune with the landscape of DEI right now and not know that emotional well-being is being deeply overlooked as we kind of plow these plans forward. What's the emotional toll and impact on the folks who have been asked to create or contribute to this plan? There's little acknowledgement of how time and capacity will be considered, how it will be compensated, whose job is this, and how are we including the folks that are most impacted by the plan while also acknowledging that this is labor, this is emotional labor, it's time labor, it's capacity labor. That again, you're going to be building mini containers for all of these steps, and the consideration of those aspects is going to be essential if the plan is going to move forward. We've also seen this where everyone is responsible for everything, and then in that way, no one is responsible for anything. Okay, we've got all these goals. Well, whose job is it? Well, it's all of our jobs. We're all going to do it. Okay. So am I hopping in or are you hopping in, right? We have a colleague, Kathleen Antoine Abiella, who likes to say it's the hopscotch, right? When do you know to, or double Dutch rather, when do you know to jump in, right? When it's your turn. So how are we assigning and delegating responsibility? Again, the cultural impacts here that we want to name our frustration and burnout if we haven't thought really deeply about the emotional well-being, about time, capacity, compensation, and about delegating thoughtfully.
I would also add here that uh, creating a plan that lacks balance also leads to this impact as well, frustration and burnout. So one of our philosophies at True North EDI is the work kind of balanced within the emotional self, the physical self environment, the mental intellectual self, the spiritual self, right? The mission that's connecting us all together. Is the plan purely cerebral,
Right.
right? Is the plan that feels like just homework, that feels unattached to physical beings, physical hopes. This is why the vision is so important in advance of the plan. So a huge impediment for us has been that we've seen um, is that it lacks a kind of a humane, holistic balance.
Absolutely.
So the kind of penultimate part of the map here is the implement part. And we're really happy because where we began the work, True North has been around since 2017. Aaron and I have been doing the work for at least a decade before that as consultants and educators. And we do see a lot of folks who are knocking at our door are in this phase or have been through this phase, and they're not kind of like in the one-off workshops phase anymore. And there's a place for workshops and trainings, but more and more our partners and organizations and the companies that we work with are interested in this phase of the work. So in this phase, we have consistent and ongoing activities and or engagements that have been scheduled for the short through the long term, are carefully aligned with the vision and action plan, and are designed to execute on the desired changes in policies, practices, and behaviors. That is not an exhaustive list of things. The work intersects with a lot of changes we want to make. Um, my favorite example of this is a client that we have. I began working with them, I believe, in 2017. And they've done a lot of this map is a cycle for them, right? In a sense, the map is a cycle. And we're using the word map again. We can go on analogies and metaphor trips for days, but ultimately, this is not the last phase of the map is not the end phase, right? It's a point on a cycle. This we'll be doing this forever, and I think a really beautiful and humane way. But the client who did a lot of that kind of vision setting, data capturing. They point their implementation to different areas of the organization over the last however many years. So they're using what they've learned and pointing it to the hiring process. Looking at what they learned, they're pointing it to the employee evaluation process. They're pointing it to decision making overall in the organization. So they're taking what they've learned. They keep pointing this lens across the organization because they can't do it all at once. No one can, and there is no expectation to. But they have chunked out this work in a way I think that it feels manageable, where I don't think there is burnout in my experience of working with them. Um, and for me is a real model of what's possible if you are committing to long-term work. Now, the impediments to the implementation phase, so even though we see a lot of folks who are kind of now in the work, got the data, have a vision, have a plan, now they're doing it, no celebration of communication or communication of successes. This makes me so sad. We are human beings who require feeling like we have been successful to move forward. And you can always find success. This is more of an orientation than anything else. There's always success to be found. Now, I'm not saying we go out and like give ourselves cookies and pats on the back for everything we do. We still need to be critical and thoughtful and reflective. But human beings beings require success and feelings of success to move forward. It is just a fact of the brain. The work is often viewed as a sprint, not a marathon. Or rather, yes. So for the client I'm talking about, that is a marathon. We have seen two EDs come, like be in place and move on, and they are in it for the long haul. It is built into their system. So whoever takes over next, it is built in. It would take like a cat bulldozer. These are bad metaphors. I don't know construction, but you to undo the nature and policies of the systems they've built in over the last 7 years would be very difficult for anyone to do. They are in it for the long haul. Other impediments to the implementation phase is that DEI, and we're using DEI as the umbrella, DEIA, DEIB, is communicated as separate rather than integrated, right? So, okay, now time to talk about our DEI in our meeting. Well, understandable. We want to be explicit about what we're doing and make visible that this is a thing we want to give light to. But when we feel as though it is not part of our day-to-day, not part of the culture or DNA of our organization, again, that is a thing that impedes momentum. And it reinforces that this is somehow an other. It's an other thing, right? And we don't want that. And then kind of the mirror to the celebration and communication of successes is that space is not given to reflect on setbacks or challenges. So, hey y'all, we tried this thing. We did not nail it. We did not nail it. We didn't realize that we were asking questions that were easily seen to be triggering. We were asking, grouping people in ways that we asked we that lacked complete and utter consent, right? We just did not do it well. Let's talk about it. Let's reflect on it. What do we want to change for next time? If this is a marathon, there will be a next time. And so rather than A, pretending it didn't happen, or B, just skipping over it altogether, we want to make time to sit with it, to reflect on it, and decide what we want to learn from it and then grow from there. And then the cultural impact here, if these things happen, is resentment. And we see this a lot. We see and feel and experience the emotions of resentment a lot with folks who come to us. It isn't resentment as in giving up, because they're here talking to us, thank God. But it's hard to sit with. Resentments are hard to build from, and we offer, let's not build from them, let's build from possibility. But we do need to recognize this is a real human state, and in work like ours, it comes up a lot. And so facing it, making it visible, naming it is how we move through it.
Absolutely. Once we're in an implementation phase, in order to do all the things that Cardozie just talked about, we have to have ways of assessing what's going on. There's a real kind of clear bridge between not only the successes and the spaces for feedback, reflection, and criticality that are all what we would consider parts of the formative and summative assessments. Now, when we say, I mentioned that Cardozie and I, many lifetimes ago, not to age us, but many lifetimes ago, we're both New York City public school educators for many years. Between us, we have nearly 30 years of experience as educators. And we have so much information about what makes for good assessment. And I mean, ultimately, we want to just clarify this is language, right? That we don't want to be exclusive. A formative assessment is a more informal assessment. It's about the form and the progress of what's going on. There are little ways that we can check in and see that we're moving in the right direction. Of course, a summative assessment would be like the thing that we said we were going to do, did we do it? And how are we going to test to see if we did it? Ultimately, in a DEI plan, we really do need both. Exactly to Cardozie's point before, we have whole human beings that are trying to do this work. So how are we making sure that the outcomes are happening? But we really don't want to try and create change in culture using the culture that needs to be changed, right? This is so essential to not, we only know how to do things one way, and that's actually the way that's causing the inequitable outcomes. And then we're doing our DEI plans that way, right? That it's important for us to have ongoing checkpoints, informal checkpoints, built into our planning process so that we know how we're doing and if we should keep moving in that direction. So we really put this in assessment and in implementation because it means so much. I had a client last year. They were doing really fabulous work. They went through this map almost identical to the way that we have it written. And we really do consider them a model client. They had identified priority areas. They developed a really fabulous DEI team. They went through learning modules. They had the resources they needed to do that. They made all these changes and nobody knew about it. Like, people didn't know, the outcomes were different. So at the end of the year, they were like, we've been working on this all year, and people were surprised within the organization that these changes, these policy changes had been made, that the data had been turned into kind of, these plan points. And it was a missed opportunity because those who didn't know what was happening didn't think anything was happening. So fundamentally, we want to make sure that it's actually not working unless we are being transparent within the organization about what we're doing and what's going well and where we're pivoting because we need to do it better. We love this. Avoiding a win-lose paradigm is so important. We actually, when folks come to us and they feel disheartened about their work for the last 4 years, truly, in the language that we're hearing when people are describing that is that they lost it, they failed, right? They didn't win DEI. They didn't pass the test. And what a disappointing entry point. Cardozie started our day saying, like, we orient towards joy and what's possible. Of course, the pain points are at the center of why we need to change our world in general. But the win-lose paradigm is so disheartening. And again, it is built into a lot of the ways that we do business, right? So how are we changing the language out of that binary and saying, listen, here's where we grew, here's where we stretched, here's what became visible to us during the process. And we actually want to start from the points where we know that we actually have like the real foundation for change. So avoiding that win-lose paradigm in assessment. Finally, we want to design assessments inclusively, truly. This means taking the values of equity and building them into how we talk to people about how it's going. We have worked with lots of folks who are just socialized within, their professional spaces to be so outcomes oriented. It doesn't matter how people are feeling as they're working towards those outcomes. Again, inclusivity here is going to matter in terms of assessing our progress because we want to know not only are we making the changes we want to see, but how is it feeling for you to make those changes? Do you feel supported? Are we supporting one another? Is there room and space for everyone to show up as their whole selves as we do this? Certainly at their level of trust and consent. So again, assessments, just some of the wisdom of assessments, and anybody with any kind of education background knows assessments should be both formal and informal. It also requires that we be willing, and this has been mentioned before, and is also maybe something we could sprinkle throughout the entire map, is each of us needs to be willing to look at how we receive feedback, how we feel about feedback, what our defensive list, what makes us defensive, what's an activator for us in terms of, well, I've been doing all this hard work and you're telling me it's not good enough, right? Like, we have to know ourselves and know the culture that we've developed within the organization around setting goals and seeing them through. So assessment important, and also there's a lot of that's possible here. Cardozie, anything you want to add to the assessment piece?
Yeah, thanks, Erin. I think, the possibility that exists with any kind of map or blueprint is that you get to kind of bird's eye view, see where you are. The drawback is that this isn't an assessment webinar, right? That is a thing that exists in the world, or an action planning webinar, right? This is about the map. But I want to also, but assessment is a big part of it's what people are looking for right now. And I want to say, in terms of kind of the win-lose paradigm, I was in a room recently facilitating this group of of assessment and evaluation and measurement geniuses. They've written books on it. They've like trial and errored it for years at their foundation or their nonprofit. Just this room of really reflective and experienced people. And a lot of it was us all looking at each other like, so wait, what do we measure? And we have the answers. There are many, many, many answers. And I say that to say, and we came out of the process with, I think, really a lovely direction forward as a collective to be thinking about how we measure change, how we assess for change. Um, but we are all thinking about it deeply. And doing this work means iteration, it means trial and error, it means trusting that no matter what happens, we will learn from it on the other side. So that's one thing I want to say. We're all thinking about assessment and how to do it well. But to Erin's point, you're not going to win it. We need to you're not going to win your DEI, right? Hopefully we're going to move forward. That's what we want. We are trying to undo just centuries upon centuries of oppression, right? And so that means we're taking it a day at a time. The other thing I will say is that when looking at the map overall, the world is not stopping around you. When you enter into a DEI process, be it big or small, the landscape of the world will continue to change. And so my hope is that part of this roadmap engenders a malleability in the process, a responsiveness. What does it mean to shift when the world shifts? And if we're really focusing on the people in the room, the people in the organization to guide it, then that container we build will shift, will be malleable. But the world won't stop. So the other reason we can't win this thing is because we have not done DEI for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, and the world just waited for us. That's not how this works. The world keeps moving. Wonderful things keep happening and bad things keep happening, as we all well know. So I want to keep that in mind because ultimately when I do, I realize, okay, we're not doing so bad. We're running like reverse and one of those an escalator, right? The other direction. We're trying to go faster than the escalator's going. So that's all I'll say about that that's coming to mind. Thank you, Erin, for the toss over there. I want to open up the space for questions and hopefully some answers. I like to call it questions and offerings. We have our experience, we have our knowledge, we have our passion to share with you. So take a moment, feel free to use at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A function. You're welcome to send us a question. We'll take some time to think through them together right in front of you.
I'm going to stop share. How's that sound, Cardozie?
Sounds great.
Great. So as we are waiting for questions to come in the chat, certain examples of clients are coming to mind, some, case studies that we've had where it's really like successful applications of some of these moments we've outlined today. I'm thinking of a client we had a few years ago. Their ongoing assessments were that in every leadership team meeting, folks from different departments had to present on their progress along their portion of the DEI roadmap. And they started to turn it into kind of a ritual. It was actually really fun. It was celebratory. Folks would share what they're doing, some of their struggles, some of the things that have been going well towards the progress. And built into that meeting was celebration of one another. So each team kind of had a portion of that meeting through an entire year to develop and share with one another their progress, but also to get feedback from their colleagues. And I think, as we know, it really disrupts kind of a classic paradigm of, I'm doing this because my boss is going to evaluate it and tell me that it's good, versus we're sharing what we're working on with our teams, and we're getting their feedback, and we're seeing kind of how it's going from their perspective, but also celebrating it together. So again, built into the systems that already exist. That's kind of the key point to that model of assessment. It's, of course, as Cardozie said, one of many, many, many that's possible, but it worked really, really well for them. Right.
Thank you. So we have a question from Janelle. Erin, do you mind reading that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So Janelle asks, Cardozie, you mentioned that this was sort of science fiction. Can you talk more about the imagination needed in order to develop a vision for some new reality that your organization has never seen or experienced before? What role does productive imagination play in this work? So beautiful.
Beautiful question, Janelle. Thank you very much. I will try not to go on any sci-fi tangents because that is easy for me to do. Um,
The webinar.
another webinar. But I think that the ability to sci-fi is often what don't we know that we don't know, right? So like we have the world that we think could exist, the world that we think is possible, or just the team, the marketing team that we think is possible, the organization that we think is possible. Um, and then we can hopefully build toward that thing. But there is other piece, if not a larger piece, of like we don't know what we don't know, right? We're only operating within the realm of our current experience. We're operating within the realm of our kind of physical and emotional state. So I think the imagination work, the one thing I can say that's most important about it is that it has to be collective work. What I don't have, Erin has. What Erin doesn't have, you have, Janelle, right? So who is in the room building and dreaming up this desired future state? Um, and I think that if we can bring play, a value of play into our professional spaces, then the possibilities like burst open anew. But as adults, we can often forget the value of play. This is why kids have great imaginations and we less so sometimes. So I think there, again, another webinar, but I want to like lift up the word play because I think that it is something that a lot of our clients are like, no role play, please, or like just concrete facts. And we're like, y'all, that's not human.
Yep.
We're looking for fully human processes. So thanks, Janelle.
Yes. If I can just very, very briefly add, because we love this, I want to say True North was built on like our first conversations were Star Trek related. Right? What examples do we have from the world where imagination, and creativity in art was showing us something that we had never seen before? But there were studies done about imagination exercises done in organizational settings. And one that I have done fairly recently with an organization, it's it's called like future generation skill building activities, and it's essentially a role play activity where you ask one person in a group of 3, and you create small groups to represent someone from 100 years in the future. And 100 years is very specific. It's just kind of far enough that we can't necessarily see it, but it's also close enough that we could be building towards that 100 years right now. And the other 2 folks in the group of 3 just have a series of questions that they ask that person from 100 years in the future. What's the world like? What is this? And they found that if you wanted to make some change within an organization, this game, this imaginative game, generated more ideas for what needed to actually happen to get to that reality than your standard meeting, objectives and key results, right? So to Janelle's point, there is something about the ways that we are trained and socialized to think about what's possible, that with every year, there's certainly studies about this. If anybody, looks in, I think it's the paperclip study, that become more and more and more reduced the older that we get. So we actually do need to build muscles that have been socialized away from us. And of course, there are fabulous thinkers about this. I'm thinking, of course, about Adrienne Maree Brown as a scholar of Octavia E. Butler. I'm thinking of Ursula K. Le Guin and The Dispossessed, and Kay Jemison. There are fabulous science fiction thinkers who are imagining worlds we haven't seen yet, that we find very deeply inspiring at True North.
Thanks, Erin. Another question here from anonymous attendee. Do you have recommendations? Lost it. Do you have recommendations for an agency with a leadership that struggles with formulating the steps plan or the plan, and not just for DEI, but really many things? So typically, in my experience, this is about this is a relational issue, right? We as human beings in a collective are not communicating in a way that kind of builds forward. Now, the good part about this is that means the DEI envisioning can be integrated into whatever possibilities exist for the larger kind of planning of the organization and the team. But I will say True North EDI has been that agency, that client who we feel like we are struggling with making a plan. We kind of begin with we go back to our values, right? What are the values we want to bring to the thing we're trying to create? And what is the outcome, right? And typically, if there is an issue, there is a misalignment between the value and the outcome. And so we want to figure out now, so what is the bridge? What does the bridge between the value and the outcome or the action look like? And let's build that together and build it in a way that honors a lot of what we just said, right? We want to move forward, but we don't want necessarily like the urgency that bulldozes over voices and inclusion. But and we want to give it time. Especially, I don't know what agency this is, but when I think of agency, depending on the kind of agency it is, there are fire alarms every day. Right? We're putting out fires a lot. Our entire existence is reactive. That reactive existences don't really work when it comes to making a plan. So there is an underlying value of urgency oftentimes that is quelling any possibility for meaningful planning and meaningful envisioning. And that underlying value has to be made visible and then has to be tended to so we can figure out how to move forward. So hope that helps.
Thanks, Cardozie. So our next question from May is, how are you seeing generational differences showing up in how orgs are on this journey? We are experiencing a lot of conflating of generational differences with all the other forms of DEI, and it has made things more difficult. First of all, I want to thank you for this question. I am really resonating and identifying because I'm working with a group right now that has recently had some conflict, and the way that the conflict was manifesting within the organization seemed to be the issue of the conflict was related to racial equity and a racial injustice, but the way that the conflict was manifesting within the organization was deeply generational. It was almost like the whole organization kind of split into two camps, younger folks and folks who had been in the organization for a longer period of time. And so what was difficult about that is that actually then it became about the generational differences and not about the thing that we all actually do want to deal with, which was the harm that happened within the organization. So what I helped them do was create a set of values, because there's something actually underneath that. And in our discovery, we did a series of affinity spaces. I worked with two colleagues, in order to hold affinity spaces. It was a Black identified as affinity space, an affinity space for white folks, and an affinity space for non-Black people of color within the organization. So in collaborating with our colleagues there, we wanted to know what was actually underneath that generational issue. And what we were seeing very clearly in all of our meetings and within our affinity spaces that was true across all the spaces, was that the folks who had been within the organization and been within this movement, it was a movement-based organization for a really long time, were feeling really unseen for their efforts that they had put towards change over decades. And younger folks were really feeling deeply unseen for the wisdom and the new knowledge that they're bringing, the new ways that they're shaping the conversations that we need to be having right now that are so valuable. And they were feeling really unseen and really unheard for those. So actually, that's a place where we can meet. What is it that folks have offered in the past that's not being rendered invisible here? Nobody is disappearing anyone, right? And what does it actually mean to look at younger folks and their experiences and say, thank you so much, because we didn't have language for that before. You're teaching me so much right now, and I'm so grateful to have you. We don't typically have models for lineage within this work. And that's to our peril, again, to borrow the words from Isabel Wilkerson, to our peril, not to build in the values of lineage. And that was actually what we had to do. So among our team, we developed values like one of our values in the organization is that we honor all of the wisdom of the folks who have come before us, and we honor what it is that people who are, who are shaping the conversation now have to teach us. From there, then we develop language to talk about that in our affinity spaces and design actual solutions to the equity problem. So what's the problem underneath the problem? It's likely something related to that. And there are great strategies, typically around building values on lineage models within the organization that can help bypass that. Not bypass it, but take it on robustly.
Yeah. I was trying not to yes, 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 yes. Uh,
So
thanks, May. I had my own response to that. That was great. I have nothing else, nothing else to add. Shout out to Michelle for naming that her organization can do more celebrating moving forward. Awesome. I totally support that. Renee, we had a leader that undermined our efforts despite being initially supportive, at least verbally. We have a new leader who is much more supportive, but I feel our team has retreated as pushback was weaponized against our DEI team. How do we use this leadership transition to encourage ourselves to be courageous and step out again? Um, Wonderful question. First, we can't just move past harm, right? Harm has been done. Harm has happened. Harm has occurred. We don't get to bypass that. Not if you want to meaningfully land somewhere that's better than that. So I think first, to the extent that hasn't happened already, we need to sit with and surface what's happened and how it's made people feel. And maybe not even just this team, maybe whatever the ripple effects that are as well. So that's step one for me. We don't get to transform things if we haven't actually moved through conflict, because the practices of moving through conflict are part of the practices we use for the transformative work in the end, anyway. Beyond that, we often ask folks, okay, so then what's at stake? Let's say we don't do it. Let's say we retreat, go the other direction. What's at stake? And people get to choose if they want to prioritize the discomfort of moving forward, or prioritize kind of the importance of equity work and transformational work, or prioritize their own needs for safety, for regrouping, but people get to choose. So it might mean that the team looks different moving forward, and that's okay. Not only is it okay, it's also like an important thing as well, kind of keeping you know people who feel the momentum, who feel the inspiration to be part of be part of what's happening. But we asked that question about stakes and what are we prioritizing, and then we just get to choose. We get to powerfully choose. And folks, in my experience, you shouldn't be somewhere you don't want to be, right? So if I'm fatigued, if I felt harmed, and I'm a part of a DEI team or DEI committee, then I might need to take a break from the committee, and that's okay, right? It's okay. So it's my thoughts on that.
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you for that. I love that Cardozie was bringing up conflict. I have a background in restorative justice, and the 4 pillars of restorative justice are harms, create needs, create obligations, create actions. So what are the obligations that arise out of the harms that happened of this new leader, right? And then what are the actions we can take that address those obligations, right?
And
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just back to the cast, the new leader has inherited this house.
Right.
Right. The new leader, that's part of the job of new leadership. I can't pretend that all that happened before. I can't take on the successes and leave behind, some of the harm that's happened. So beyond the new leader, it is collectively the house of everyone. And we have now inherited what we now have. What are we going to do with it? Last question for now. I have a nuts and bolts procedure question. How long should we think about the process taking place working with you all? So that means me and Erin and True North. And on average, what's the staff ask for time per week? It's very nuts and bolts. But a really important question that we're always asked. I would say that it is truly dependent on the needs and the infrastructure of your organization. We cannot come in and say, all right, y'all, we're going to do 8 7-hour workshops every week for the next 6 months. Well, we can't do that. We have jobs and we have families, we have life. It's I'm using hyperbole here, but we have to, yet another metaphor. When any architect designs um, a bridge, say the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, um, and I'm in New Orleans, we have the Causeway. You know, you have to do like deeply measure the Earth's sphere. There's a lot of math and measurement and landscaping taken into account before we make a decision about what goes here, what will we build here. Same with the house, that picture of the house with the trees in it, right? What's already here that requires us to think deeply about what we will build on top of this. So it really depends on kind of the vision for, and hopes for the work, aspirations for the work, and also what's possible in terms of infrastructure for the organization, how big it is, how much burnout is already happening, what the capacity is. And so that can look, if we did we could literally do a process that takes 2 years for one client and takes 8 months for another. And because we want it to happen meaningfully and we want there to be meaningful transformation, we have to go at the speed of what's possible, speed of trust, speed of infrastructure, and so on. So call us and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. I would always say, look at the structures that already exist and where can we partner and collaborate within those already existing structures. So the first entry point into thinking about the partnership isn't how many 30 more meetings are we adding to our schedule? What meetings can we invite Erin and Cardozie to come in and start collaborating, right? Like that already exist. Oh, hey, Patty. Great to see you. Patty asks, can an organization bring a new mission statement that is different than what was brought out initially without raising distrust? You mentioned transparency, but how to do this without bringing finger pointing or anything that brings defensiveness or shame? New mission statement that's different than, my first clarifying question, and it's so great to see that you're here, Patty, is this a mission statement for the whole organization? Is it a mission statement for the DEI work? Is it a mission statement, what we sometimes call mini missions? Do you remember those mini missions and mini visions that Cardozie was talking about before, which would be like a department-wide, vision for the equity work, for example? So the context for what kind of mission statement you're talking about is really, really important. Whole organization, great. So I certainly have some thoughts. Cardozie, is anything coming up for you right now in terms of how we design a new mission statement that's different than what was brought out initially without raising distrust? First of all, one thing that I would say in terms of creating the container for the development of a new mission statement, as we talked about before, is being transparent with the organization about the why behind the development of the new mission and vision. And acknowledging the institutional memory and the things that we actually know that we need to change, and sharing those out loud. And then I'd be really, really specific in the container building about what the steps are that we're going to hear from different members of the organization, people across all tiers of the organization, to contribute to what it is that we think we can actually do in order to create those changes. Cardozie, what's coming up for you here?
I think when I think about mistrust in general, mistrust usually comes from a history of treatment or history of experiences. So we need to look at what were the conditions that led to the current mistrust, because I would be surprised if I made a decision that my team was mistrustful about, because there isn't that history here. They might be like, where did this come from? Like, why are you making this decision? And we would love to be part of it, which has actually happened several times, but trust isn't the issue per se. So I would love to look at that more deeply. And then to Erin's point, which resonated for me, we have to really share the why. Why are we changing the mission statement? Is it because it no longer serves the thing we were trying to do when we came up, like when we were founded in the 70s? Maybe that's possible. Does it have we realized that the language actually reinforces oppressive narratives or beliefs in the way we're viewing young people, communities, and we're realizing that that is misaligned and runs counter to the work we've done around equity, the work we've done around DEI. So there are a lot of reasons that can happen, but the authentic sharing of the why, and then space for conversation, space to, and that doesn't mean decision making, right? There's all kind of models for who gets to make decisions and how, but we do need to have space to hear from people. And oftentimes that's all people want. And that may be the thing that was missing leading up to the process as well. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
We have time for maybe one
Yeah,
more.
I'll read this one. In the DEI committee in my org, no people of color are interested in participating or contributing. Clearly, there has been harm in our organization and a lack of trust, but we are missing their perspective on this work. The DEI committee is unpaid and thankless work. How do we set a better container to have more voices involved?
Ugh,
A great question.
yeah. So this happens. This happens. First of all, I would say that DEI is a very large umbrella term, right? That where racial identity is a part of that. So there is still work to be done here. But yes, I think that it is very difficult to do work that is in the vision of it is to support people who are not in the room. So for me, this is where I have to go back and say a committee might not be the answer. The committee might not be the answer, or we need to rethink about the purpose and orientation of the committee. We don't want paternalism. We don't want people making decisions for others. We don't want presumptions around experience for folks who are not in the room to share those experiences. And even if they were, their experiences would be unique and distinct because we are folks of color are diverse. Um, I tend to be an advocate for folks at the helm of the work, but if the nature of the organization yields that helm lacks the necessary representation, then that might not be the answer. Um, and or part of the mandate is to be a space either on the team or for the organization is a place where people of color would want to be on that team. Other work needs to happen here.
Yeah.
So a DEI committee might be useful depending on what the goals are of it. But I would consider that there is more cultural work to be done, and likely, as it says here, there is some severe healing work that needs to be done that will be consensual and opt-in, obviously, but that feels like more of a focus. I don't think we can't build a house that the people who like aren't expected to inhabit it have no say in.
Yeah.
Erin, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll be really brief and my answers will be like, sort of technical examples that I have right now. I work in an organization where in some of the equity work, the people of color are compensated and us white folks are not. And that's a decision that we made. It's a value that we have. And we changed the name of the folks of color in the organization who participate as accountability partners, and they're compensated for that work. So that's a technical solution, is that we could compensate folks of color and come up with what values we want to lead in compensation. Fundamentally, any kind of erosion of trust means that someone likely in a position of power said they were going to do something that they didn't do, right? That there's been a kind of betrayal, right? So, and Lily Jang speaks about this in DEI Deconstructed as well. One of the best ways to start healing that is to say small things that we're going to start doing and just do it. And then be clear that you're going to do it. We're going to start compensating people of color for their participation in equity committees. Say you're going to do that and then do that. And that's almost sometimes the only way to start rebuilding trust, is to set small, very achievable goals and do them. Say that follow through on commitments after asking people what they would need. I'd first, again, this is very restorative justice, but the people who are most harmed by the work that's happened, we'd need to ask them And as Cardozie said, people are different, but ask people what they need and what they would want to need and they would need in order to feel like they could move forward. But that would require some obligations and follow through. Follow through is honestly the only way to undo eroded trust.
Yeah, and build momentum at all.
Yep.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, everyone. We are at time. So appreciative of folks' attendance today. And if you're not here and watching this on the rewind, hope that it's felt useful to you. From here, you will receive tomorrow a recording of the webinar, as well as the PDF of the map if you don't have it saved, which you're welcome to. You got it in the chat. And more to come on what's possible, not only working with us, but also just what we want to hope to share with you this year. So thank you. We are looking forward to so much more.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.